Time to sew some pockets. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Tamlyn, this is Sewn on the Tyne, and this is episode 5? I'm gonna say it's episode 5 of my Sewing the Spindrift jacket by Helen's Closet. So yes, we're gonna get sewing some pockets today, and I'm really excited because I haven't actually sewn anything so far on this jacket, and we've been working on it for about 2 to 3 weeks. Just to say, I apologise if you can hear the crazy wind outside or if the camera shakes at all, because we're on the very top floor of the house and it's shaking a little bit because of the strong winds. So yes, that might be why everything looks a bit jittery. So I thought I'd just go through some comments from the last video. I have picked out a few questions that were asked and also some nice comments that were left. So Annette in Michigan said, "Thanks Tamlyn, these more involved videos are time consuming to make but so helpful to your viewers." So thank you so much that you have acknowledged that. Yes, they are time consuming to make, however I'm really enjoying doing them and I'm really enjoying the interaction with you all, so I'm going to continue because I'm loving it. Julie, who has her own channel, Julie Sews Her Own Clothes, and is just wonderful, said, "I'm really enjoying the pace of this series. Sometimes sewing feels like a rush to the finished garment so we can wear it or have something ready to record, but taking time to enjoy the details of the garment making process brings a lot of joy into sewing. Thanks for reminding me to enjoy sewing more." I'm really glad that it's had that effect on you, Julie, and yeah, I feel exactly the same. Lisa left a really lovely comment and said she's loving this series, and for anybody who is earlier in their sewing experience, you are giving so much information and knowledge. Your presentation skills are also incredible, so thank you, that's really kind. I think because I was a teacher for 17 years, well, a teaching assistant and then a teacher, I think I have those kind of presentation skills quite naturally, I guess, so hopefully they do come across in the videos as well. Right, a few questions then. I'll do my very best to answer these questions. So Liz said, "Some fusible interfacings I've used advise not to use steam. What do you think, Tamlyn? Is it different for woven interfacing?" I don't know, to be honest. I don't deliberately use steam when I'm interfacing. However, I don't consciously turn off the steam on my iron, so if it happens, it happens. And I haven't had a problem with it, to be honest. Like I kind of approached it in the last video is the way that I always approach it. I always test a little bit out. I always start with my iron quite low in terms of heat and then build up. I always start off with a press cloth and then I remove that if I don't think it's necessary. I wouldn't deliberately use steam, but I don't think it would always have a negative effect. I believe I listened to an episode of the Love to Sew podcast, and Helen and Caroline talked a lot about interfacing, and I think they talked about steam. So I'm sure they did a whole episode on interfacing. So if I can find that, I will link to it down below and go and check that out. It's actually a really interesting listen. I found this really interesting. Jay said, "I always let my woven fusible interfacing soak in very hot water for 20 minutes and then air dry. It doesn't damage the glue and it pre-shrinks it." I used to do the same with the non-woven fusible as well. So that's really interesting. It's not something that I've done, and I haven't been aware that there's been a problem as a result of not doing it. However, yeah, that's good to know that if you were wanting to pre-wash it, then soaking it rather than actually putting it through the washing machine sounds like a really good way to do it. Louise said, "Great informative video, Tamlyn. I have seam tape flexible T15. Is this the same as the forming tape?" So no, it isn't the same. I think the one that you've got is designed for jersey fabrics. So it's a stretchy tape that is cut on the bias. So it's similar in that way. However, it doesn't have that row of chain stitches through it. And it's designed for jersey or knit fabrics just to add stability in certain areas, maybe for the hem or neckband, shoulder seams, things like that. Judith said, "Do you do block fusing? I like to do it if I have lots of small pieces to interface. It seems to make things easier for me." Yeah, it's something I have done. So block fusing, if you don't know what that is where you take a piece of your fabric and a piece of your interface into a larger piece, and you actually fuse the whole thing, and then you cut out your required pattern pieces from that. So you've actually block fused a whole piece of fabric rather than just interfacing little pieces. And yeah, definitely it's something that I have done before, and it's something that can make the process easier if you've got lots of pieces to interface, and a bit less fiddly and easier to press as well when it's all one piece. So Bev asked, Do you get the bound instructions booklets printed from the same place you get your PDFs printed? If so, where is it? So yes, I do. So my pattern instruction booklets look like this, and they come from CLC Prints. So spiral bound, you've got this plastic on the cover just to protect it. You've then got this hard cardboard on the back, and you've got your instructions all the way through. I don't get these printed out for every single pattern, but I absolutely love having them, and I can make notes on them. And yeah, I just really find it useful and really easy to follow as well, rather than having to follow something on my phone or my laptop. They are priced at £3 for up to 50 pages, which I think is great. And then they get a little bit more expensive if you're over 50 pages. But most instruction booklets aren't over 50. Actually, I think this one is. I think this is 60 pages. So this would have been a little bit more than £3. I can't remember exactly how much, but I will link to CLC down below and you can check them out. So you can add that on when you order your pattern. So Bev also referred back to where I'd found some lines that had appeared in the fabric after I'd washed it and dried it. And she very sensibly said that it can be to do with the quality of the fabric and the dyes that are used. And when you buy from online sellers, well, when you buy from anywhere, in fact, you never actually know where that fabric has come from. And places like Rainbow Fabrics and others that get fabric from like dead stock, so it's like leftover from designers or high street stores or whatever, they often don't actually know the exact composition of the fabric and, you know, the details of it. So you don't really know the quality of it. And sometimes you'll get really lucky and get a brilliant quality fabric, and other times you might not. Now that fabric does feel like a really good quality fabric to me. Feels like it's a really sturdy, stable, like lovely fabric. However, the dyes that are used in creating the print on it might not be the best. And yeah, so that was something that I hadn't really thought about. So thank you, Bev. Right, somebody else asked how I manage the grain line when I'm cutting out to make sure that the fabric's on grain. I didn't see you use a measuring tape in your vlog. How did you manage? So I actually thought about this afterwards, and it was something that I was going to address and then I didn't. I totally forgot. So depending on what fabric I'm using will depend on whether I'm really careful with measuring my grain line. With that fabric, I decided to eyeball it. Hands up, being completely honest. I didn't feel like it was going to shift around a lot, and I felt quite confident in my ability to get that fabric on grain just by eye. However, if I was using something quite shifty, like a viscose, a satin, something a bit more movable and fluid, I would tend to use a measuring tape or a measuring ruler. A meter ruler, and I would actually check that I was getting the fabric on grain by measuring from the selvage and checking that the fabric was equal distances from that selvage. So yes, very well spotted. I did not measure my grain line at any point, which could come back to haunt me, but I don't feel like it will with that type of fabric and with this type of project. I think it'll be fine. But yes, I cut corners sometimes. I'm sure we are all in the same boat. And then Glenda did mention that the lines on the fabric could have been to do with drying. So actually hanging it up to dry and the water being on that fabric for longer could have made the lines on the fabrics. That was, again, something that I hadn't thought about. So thank you so much. So comments done. Let's get on to some sewing. So we are up to step 3 in the instructions, which just seems a bit wild, doesn't it? That we're on video number 5 and we're only up to step 3 of the instructions. But step 3 and 4, and 5 and 6 in fact, are going to be about the patch pockets. So these are like the chest pockets rather. So it's these ones here. Oh, that was something to mention. I did ask for advice last time about whether to put these pocket flaps on or not. It was a very mixed response. Some people were saying don't, because the fabric is busy enough as it is and there's enough going on without having those. Others were saying that they love pocket flaps. They think it adds a really nice feature and it means that whatever you put in there is secure. I'm not entirely sure I'd put anything in those pockets anyway. I think they're just there as a design feature. I don't know. So yeah, I think I'm going to opt for no flaps. Decision made. No flaps, but I am going to pop these pockets on, these chest pockets. So the first step is going to be to press the top of that over. So I'm going to use my very trusty hot hemmer. This is the Clover Hot Hemmer, and I need to press the top of the pocket over by 3/8 of an inch, which is a centimetre, so that would just be up to this red line here, and this will help me get a really straight, crisp line. So I'm going to do that. It does say that if you're working with really thick fabric, you could actually trim and overlock the top edge of the pocket, but my fabric, although it's a heavier weight denim, it's not thick enough. It's not a wool coating, for example, so I'm not going to do that. You then fold the top of the pocket over to the right side and you stitch here. You'll then turn the top of the pocket over so it's all right sides out, and then we'll press these sides over here and then do some top stitching. So I'm going to go away and do all of that and come back to you, but I just wanted to mention I'm going to be using the Gutermann denim thread throughout this project. It's a little bit thicker than a standard thread, and it's just going to make sure my seams are really robust and strong, and also when I'm doing my top stitching it's going to give a nice effect. It'll just stand out a little bit more than if I was using the sewall thread. I have actually decided just to use standard sewall thread in my bobbin. I don't know why, just probably because I've already got a bobbin loaded up with black sewall thread. I'll see how I go, but I just feel like it's probably enough to have the denim thread on the top and then the sewall thread in the bottom. And then the needle that I'm going to be using is actually a specific jeans needle, so I'm going to be using the size 90 Prim jeans needles. I've already popped one into my sewing machine. This is a brand new pack, and yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to get started. So I've done the first couple of steps of the pocket. So I pressed that under, I then turned that over to the right side, and I've stitched at 5/8 of an inch here and here. Now the next step is to turn this through. So whenever I've done this before, I've always sort of been instructed to snip some off there just to reduce the bulk a little bit. Now Helen doesn't tell you to do that, so I think I'm just going to go with Helen's instructions, to be honest, rather than doing it if it's not necessary. So we'll see, and then see if we need to reduce that bulk. Finding my little point turner. This is just from Prim. You can get them from other places as well, and it just helps you poke out, and get a nicer point on your corner. So there we go. So now we need to go and press the other sides and the bottom all by 5/8 of an inch all the way around. So I'm going to go and do that, and I'm going to do the same to the other pocket too. So our pockets are done. So I've turned them the right way out. I've pressed under all of these edges, and then I've done my top stitching. Now there are options to do either 1 row or 2 rows. I did my first row, and then I just thought that a second row would look quite nice as well. And Helen gives you some really fantastic advice about top stitching in the instructions as well. So yes, that one's all done. These clips are just keeping this pressed fabric in place until the next stage. Then this is my other pocket, and I've gone ahead and added a label. So I needed to decide at this point if I wanted a label on one of these pockets, and I did. So I had a little look through my label collection, and I found this one, which is a little Rosy Cheeks one, and it says Wild Make, and I just thought it was really suitable because it is a wild make. It's an animal print, and also I thought the black went really nicely, and it's a flat label, which was perfect for going onto this pocket. Now, just to mention, I didn't show you me applying the label, but I was thinking of doing that as a standalone tutorial, like a separate video, because I like to apply my flat labels with a really tight zigzag stitch. You're not going to be really able to see it there, but I also did it the other day on this one. This one isn't quite as tight. You can see some little gaps in it, but this one you can't. And it just gives a really, really neat finish. So if you would like to see that as a separate tutorial, do let me know, and then I'll get that done as soon as I can. And as I was stitching that on, I held it in place with a little glue pen, which I get from Little Rosy Cheeks as well. Really great for holding your label in place while you stitch it so it doesn't move around. So yes, I've got my 2 pockets ready to go, and the next step is going to be to position them onto the fronts of my jacket and actually stitch those on. I'm going to go for a little break first though, because I need to pop to the supermarket, get a couple of bits for our dinner tonight, and then get something for lunch, and then I'll come back and do that next stage, I think, and I'll share that with you as well. You'll just have to excuse this and the mess. I went out onto the street to retrieve the bins because it's bin day on like the windiest day. So the bin men have just been to empty the bins, and I had to go and chase lots of them down the street because obviously now they're empty, they're just blowing everywhere. So I've been chasing and putting neighbours' bins back, and yeah, it's chaos out there. So anyway, I nearly got blown away a couple of times. So the hair has had to go up because it's just wild. Anyway, you join me on the floor. I didn't end up going to the supermarket. I messaged Sam and I said, I can't face it. And he said, don't worry, I'll go on my way home from work. So we're sorted. I've had a little bit of lunch and now I'm ready to mark my pockets on and sew them onto the front of the jacket. So I'll turn you around and show you what I'm up to. So I've just laid out my front piece, and then on top of that I've put my pattern. So I needed to mark on these markings here. So you've got two markings for the top two corners of your chest pocket. So all I did was punched through a little hole, and to do that I used an awl. So I just punched through the size 8 and the size 8 to give me a little hole. And then what I did was I had a little look through to see what colour fabric was underneath, because if it was white then I wouldn't have used a white chalk, but as it happens it was actually both on a black section, so I just used a white chalk pencil. You can see I had some blue ones lined up here as well, and I've just put a little dot through here and here, so when I move that out of the way I've got my 2 dots there for the top of my pocket. So I'm going to do that on the other side now. And just to mention, when you do it on the other side, just flip your pattern piece over, obviously, so then it matches up with the other side of the jacket, if that makes sense. So I now can't see any of the information on the pattern, but I can see my 2 holes, which is what I need. So I can just mark through these 2 holes with my chalk pencil. Then you just want to place your pockets on, and I've lined up the top corners with the 2 dots that I've made. I also decided which side I wanted my label to be on, and I wanted my label to be, because it was in like the bottom left hand corner, or right hand as you're looking at it, left hand as I'd be wearing it, I wanted that to be closest to like the left arm, if that made sense. So I've decided to put it on that side. So I've just placed these on, and now I'm going to pin them in place. So we have chest pockets. Let's have a little look then. We've got one here, and we've got one here. And as you can see, I've gone for the 2 rows of top stitching around the outside. So in the booklet, it gives you instructions for how to do the 2 rows or how to do 1 row, and also how to deal with this bit at the top to secure this on. Now, it did actually recommend doing a bar tack at the top of each corner. However, mine feel pretty secure, I have to say. And like I said earlier, I don't think I'd actually be using these pockets as such. They're more of just a feature. So I haven't done a bar tack, but I could always change my mind at a later time. It'll be easy enough to just go on and do that. So I think that's my progress on that for today. It is 2:05. I need to go and pick Taylor up from school in just under an hour, so he finishes at 3:05, but I've also got other things to do. I need to start getting my things packed up for the sewing retreat that I'm going on this weekend, which by the time you see this video I'll already be on. So yes, I've got a few things to do, so I'm going to leave my progress here, and I'm really happy with where we've got to today. We've added some chest pockets. That is progress. Like we were talking about earlier in some of the comments, it's a slow sew, and I'm actually really enjoying that, not getting overwhelmed by the huge task of sewing a jacket, breaking it down into little steps. So today was the chest pockets. Next time I come to it, it's going to be the hip pockets, which are these ones, which I will use because that's the ones that I'll put my hands in. So that is the next step, which is pretty much the same technique as I've just used for that. So I don't think I'll show you me doing that because I'll be marking them on, pressing them under, top stitching them on. So it's just exactly what I've done there. Then we'll be moving on to pre-pressing the hem of the front and the back, and then you move on to constructing the hood. So yeah, breaking it down into these little steps is just making it feel so much more manageable. Right, so just before we go, I'm going to say thank you to Emma. Emma left me a lovely message on my Ko-fi account and a lovely contribution, and she said she's loving the Spindrift series. So thank you, Emma, for that. And if you ever wanted to send me a little tip or anything on my Ko-fi account, it is linked in the description box down below, and there's a super thanks or a thanks button under the video that you can contribute that way. But just by being here and interacting with me and yeah, commenting and engaging with the content, and yeah, I'm loving it. That is the support that I need, so thank you so much. So I hope you've enjoyed this little update. It's a little bit of a shorter one today, but I hope that's okay, and I'll see you again soon for episode 6. Thank you for watching. Bye.